Session has started, and I don't see the presentation right now. Do you, Patricia?
Okay.
That looks great, Sarah. I don't know if we're still behind the scenes or if we're live now.
I think we're live.
All right, I like it. I think we're getting ready to get started here. So it is noon, so we'll get kicked off. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome virtually to Harrisburg University and this community forum, The Role of Social Intelligence in Management. You all are so wise to have logged on for this and to make this investment of your time in this session. As Dr. Dyson shares, social intelligence really is an indispensable skill. And as noted, organizations armed with social intelligent leadership are poised to outperform competitors through a cohesive culture. As you may have noticed, when you registered, this session is going to provide insights to create environments where leaders not only manage, but inspire. So without further ado, I'll do a quick introduction of Dr. Sarah Dyson. Dr. Dyson is Harrisburg University's course team lead for our project management Masters of Science, Business and Requirements Analysis Fundamentals course and graduate thesis, and she spearheads courses on emotional intelligence for project managers. She is also our chief editor at Behind the Project Horizon, Journal of Project Management Innovation. So without further ado, Sarah, I will turn it over to you for your session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. Welcome to today's session. I hope to bring some learning moments to your lunch. The holidays are coming. Merry Christmas, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Just as any university class may do, I have a pop quiz for you. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to complete that. It should pop up on the screen for you to be able to take. There it is. It's set up as a poll. So you'll have a couple of minutes to get that through. I'm going to talk while you answer the question, right? So the social intelligence that managers put in today is a little bit different than what we learned in the beginning. Today we adapt more so to the overall human connection. And as organizations, they really have to if they want to succeed, right? So we're going to do a review of how that started and what it has turned into, really, and why it is paramount for organizations to implement. So I'll give you another minute on that quiz.
And can you see the results coming in there? Just wanted to make sure you're seeing it okay, Sarah.
I see the poll.
Okay, it does on the screen. Once you vote, I think you can see it. So it looks like 100% have said it aids in understanding and addressing employees' emotions and concerns.
Awesome. Very good. I am in full screening. All right. So 100% provided the correct answer. That's
Wow.
Great. Oh, there it is. Great. So I have a little timeline here, and it provides the early beginnings. And what this timeline represents is not only the agenda, because it's going to be our walkthrough, but it's also how social intelligence could be used in an organization, starting from emotional intelligence and doing the research on social intelligence within your organization. What are your needs? What does your organization have to be more social intelligent? But it's not just the organization itself. It's also the leader's responsibility as well. And providing social intelligence as a key leadership skill, acknowledging how social intelligence impacts the organization. So we're looking kind of at two different types of social intelligence. One is a key trait within you, the leader, isn't the individual, but also the social intelligence of the organization. Where is that? And then, like I said, this started a while back, a few years ago. So we're looking at modern times and understanding it through the lens of today. What does that look like? And then I'm going to end with some areas that can continue to grow. And how can you cultivate social intelligence, not only within yourself, but also within the organization? Oh, I wanted to tell the audience, if you have any questions as we go through, please put them in the chat. I'd be happy to discuss them while we're going through the presentation.
The only question I see there so far is they're asking for a phone number to dial in. So maybe Patricia can pull that phone number and put it in the chat when she gets it.
Okay. All right. So emotional intelligence. I know a lot of people have heard about it. You probably studied it and know about it. These are 4 key areas that if all you were to do is work on these, you would increase your emotional intelligence skill. First, we start with self-awareness. Simply put, if you don't know yourself, how are you going to get to know other people and organizations? How are you going to be able to control your emotions, understand your values, if you don't know yourself? Your social skills. How are you going to communicate with other people, right? What are these behaviors? What are the body languages? What are the rolling of the eyes? What does that mean? It doesn't mean the same thing with everyone. And then, is eye contact appropriate in every situation? That's different. And then your self-regulation. Staying calm, thinking through your answers is probably the best thing to do whenever you're faced with an email that you don't really like, you don't agree with, you are rejected. Self-regulation is the key there. But also whenever you're in person, whenever you fly off the handle in front of people, they see it. It decreases maybe the value of your skill, and it also degrades the trust. So one key point to remember as leaders is that you're always being observed, no matter what. The rule of measure is now measured through wherever you are, throughout the organization. If you're at lunch with colleagues, you're being observed. If you're having a conversation with another colleague, you're being observed not only by the colleague you are talking to, but everyone else that can see you. They're watching you. Maybe they can hear what you're saying, but your body language and how you regulate it means a lot. And then motivation yourself. What gets you up in the morning? What gets you out of bed? And then how are you going to relay that to your team or your organization? Whenever you're driving change to accomplish a specific goal, your motivation has to be very high and a lot of times optimistic. So your team will come along and not be scared of what's going to happen, because there may be changes on top of the changes that you're already implementing. We all know that change is inevitable. So we have to keep everyone motivated, on the same page, and on board. Are there any questions, Kelly? I saw something going on.
Oh, they're looking for the phone number.
Oh, got it. Okay.
All is good here.
Sorry, I can't. It's very blank over there.
I'm sorry. I know we're having you multitask here.
So why do managers, leaders, and really all organizations need some form of emotional intelligence? Managers need it so they are better equipped to handle interpersonal conflicts within the workplace and build strong relationships with their teams, colleagues, other leaders, and probably other leaders at other organizations. Because you want creating those mutual relationships, because you can maybe join forces in some way. But without a relationship and without understanding your own emotional intelligence and cultivating that, it's not going to be quite easy. But no matter what level of emotional intelligence you're at any time, strive for progression, not perfection. Perfection takes a really long time. And if we try to make anything perfect or everything perfect, there may not be a solid product to deliver. And what I mean by product is your ability to motivate, cultivate, and also inspire others to come along with you and your organization for change. So here are a few of the overall benefits of social intelligence within management. Management is faced with conflicts every day. A lot of times they have to collaborate with other areas that they usually don't, or sometimes don't. Or maybe you're collaborating with the same team every single day and you experience conflict on a weekly basis among some of the team members. Understanding why that is happening and observing the social environment in which themes, meetings, trainings, modeling, or maybe coaching. Understanding why this body language is taking place or the behavior can be changed. It can be fostered to provide a social intelligent, avenue or path for those teams to work better. And to do that, one must consider training modules, training your teams and your organization to increase their emotional intelligence so their social atmosphere is functioning on a positive, productive level. Implementing the changes of just the training and modeling can be challenging sometimes. And your top challenge that you will experience as managers is most likely resistance. Resistance to any type of change. It doesn't matter if it's just incorporating a new piece of training, you will receive resistance. When I am asked to take a mandated training, which I'm asked 3 times a year on specific things, but I took the training last year. Why do I have to take it again? So I experience this 3 times a year. I get past it and I move on. No one knows I am hesitant or kind of procrastinate on it. I have to do it, so I do. Time constraints. Teams, organizations will experience time constraints because you have a dozen other things going on.
Sarah, before you go to your question, there is a question in the chat. It says, hello, my question is how to best interact or address an individual who may be on the spectrum and has social difficulties. Thankfully, we have different types of employees, and there can often be issues with employees' social behaviors at work.
Yes, that's a good question. I've run into this with some medical students, actually. So what I would recommend are one-on-one conversations initially in a very delicate way, unless they already are aware of their possibly social awkwardness. Okay. So if that is evident in their physical behavior, and it sounds kind of like what it is, providing some training, but it's not going to be most likely the training that is advanced that, let's say, 90% of your employees would probably get. This training is going to be on a different level, and a level where this person is. So you're kind of meeting that person where they're at, okay? Because they have great skill levels and or assets, value in other areas, right? So there's social behaviors at work. If they're not at the level of 80% of your employees, consider having a mentor model, because those are two things that you're probably going to have to put together to provide to this person. Mentoring and modeling the behavior that is appropriate in the organization. Does that answer your question?
I'm sorry, there's also another comment.
Go ahead.
So I'll just, it doesn't look like there was any follow-up to that one. Mindfulness is also a great way to expand on social intelligence, and you can lead by example to those who do not portray social or emotional intelligence. So that was just a comment, I guess, not a question there.
Yes, I love mindfulness, and one of my, I guess, adult heroes, her name is Ellen Langer, and she just wrote a new book. It's the Mindful Body, but it provides you a different perspective on not only yourself, your capabilities, but also your environment. So it allows you to look through another lens. Thank you very much for mentioning that, Carol.
And Stacy did thank you for your other answer. It did answer her question.
All right. So what do managers, organizational leaders continue to do to increase the social intelligence within the organization? So they identify the emotions of others and they listen. They respond with empathy and understanding. So listening, active listening, is something that a lot of leaders and managers don't necessarily do all the time because they're busy and they're less aware of what they're doing and not necessarily truly listening or active listening to others. Active listening is being engaged, and it's not playing with your phone and trying to listen. It's not sending an email and trying to listen. I can't even type and listen to a student anymore. I don't know why, but the student has a great value, and it's an important question, right? So I realized I cannot type and do that anymore. Managers also continue to boost their staff morale, because when we're talking about change and resistant, we're also talking about another concept as well, and that's what's going to happen, the unknown. With the unknown comes the imagination and what we create in our head, our beliefs. We start to think about all the things that possibly could happen, and usually they're really negative. Not, I mean, your employee is visualizing this change because if it is unknown and what's to come. And sometimes that fear and the unknown comes out and it's expressed maybe to the team or the organization, because the employee is sometimes fearful of losing their job or getting put into a position where they don't know how to do the job anymore. So now they may get fired because they don't know enough. Okay. So all of this goes on in their head whenever it comes time to make a change or a transition. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what is that humanistic approach for managers to take on a social level. And then handling interpersonal conflicts calmly, mediating disputes, and be proactive, not reactive, to these disputes. Find common ground where everyone can come to the table and share ideas. Lastly is promote work relations. work relationships by creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and shared goals. And I'm going to talk about there it is, boost morale by creating safe spaces, right? What is a safe space? So I'm asking the audience, what does a safe space look like for your organization or your team, your employees? What does that look like to you?
Feel free to put that in the chat if you have a thought on Sarah's question.
Oh, thanks, Patricia. Very good. So I'll give you a little bit of time to answer that. I'm going to move on to the next one. But what does that safe space look like for your team or organization? One of my favorite authors was William Joyce. And where I grew up, he actually had the books in the college that was right down the street. I thought he was an amazing illustrator. That's what drew me. They were bright colors, but they were very simple. And I liked the stories too. I have this little blurb here because whenever I Googled William Joyce again, I realized there was another William James before this one, that went to prison. And I didn't want there to be any confusion. This is an author of children's books. The greatest discovery of his generation, or my generation, is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes. Okay. So altering our attitudes is sometimes hard, but we have the capability and control over altering our attitudes. Okay. Think about a rainy day. It's gloomy. It's gray. It's raining, and maybe it's a little cold. You don't want to go out in it. But you have all of these other great things, resources, people that you're probably around. So yeah, it may be gloomy and rainy out there, but there's a lot of things to be grateful and happy for throughout the day. So that's what I mean by changing your perspective and also your attitude. All right, so going back to this question, I see there's lots of responses. Safe places where employees can feel comfortable in providing feedback. Most importantly, you need to be able to receive the feedback and take action. A place where people can be themselves and where they can feel free to ask questions without ridicule, or fear of retribution. Judgment-free zone. Absolutely. So all of these are correct. My favorite one is Suzanne Paxton's, a place where people can be themselves and where they feel free to ask questions without ridicule or retribution. That's, wow, that is that place, right? I can speak freely, knowing for sure I, as the employee, am not going to be ridiculed if I say I don't know something, or I don't like something, or something makes me uncomfortable. I'm not going to have any negative repercussions expressing those thoughts. So that is your safe place. That is your goal, what you're striving for that safe place. And a lot of teams function better when that safe place is available and known about. And what is it? What is it that you can do? What is it you probably shouldn't do? Okay? Because in teams and organizations, you need policy, procedure, rules, and regulations. Therefore, with this safe space, let them know what they can do, what they shouldn't do. So these are some statistics from about 2020. So they're a little bit older. But 82% of employees value social skills, right? We are social beings. We need it. We strive for it. It's something that we seek after. We actually do. 15% higher social skills lead to higher productivity. And then 87%, they thought stronger social skills led to better employee retention. So when you think about that, if your organization has that emotional intelligence at the top and you're coming down and your social intelligence skill has leveled up, you're most likely going to have a higher rate of employee retention across the board. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone completely understands what's going on, why you're doing it, what are the values, how do they align, and how to reach the goal, all is one. All right, so social intelligence in management. These are some key things, or you could call them steps. They're interrelated. They overlap. There's starting at the top and working down would be your primary order, because it's hard to implement change when nobody understands what you're implementing it for. However, if you start at the top, social intelligence and management, acknowledging and understanding what are the goals and values of this change that you're trying to make within the organization, what does that successful integration of the change look like? And I'm using change here a little broadly and interchangeable for policies, procedures, anything that your organization may endure at any one time. It could be digital transition. It could be implementing a new software. Letting others know and acknowledging the why behind making this change is part of that social piece. Okay. And then benefits of the social intelligence piece are improving the communication, collaboration, empathy, and conflict resolution between the team and organization. It helps these teams deal with the dynamic differences, and that could be anything from skill level, generational, sometimes personality pieces. All of these things are attributes that impact the communication, collaboration. So socializing that why, it doesn't fix some of these issues, not initially, but eventually it will reduce the impact of the negative concepts on the team. So, like I said previously, to train others to be more social intelligent. So now we're kind of coming middle management, right? And to train them, like the question earlier, maybe you have an employee that their social behavior isn't quite where it needs to be, or maybe somebody is very resistant, so they isolate themselves. Well, training and providing some mentorship, maybe some one-on-one coaching, will assist in that and can foster an increase of social intelligence and also emotional intelligence. Because inevitably, whoever the mentor or coach is would have to have that skill to then lift the social skill. And then your healthy workplaces. We talked a little about the safe spaces, and that is a step towards a healthier workplace to reduce the resistance, to increase or maybe reduce time constraints. And then it decreases the lack of awareness that employees or overall functional areas may have. Are there any questions? I see some.
Let's see. There is a new question. I apologize. Understanding that effectively integrating social intelligence into your organization is a cultural shift for most, what are the key questions, skills we should be looking for when we are hiring new management?
That's a good question, James. It is a cultural shift sometimes, and you may be faced with that. Understanding because I always go back to the why. Why are we making this change? I think understanding the why, what value does it bring to the organization, is critical for the culture of the organization itself. So, what are the key questions and skills we should be looking for when you're hiring new managers? I would imagine it would be empathy, communication, relationship building, and also their listening skills. Are they receptive? But do they have the logical reasoning to react, or I guess react would be the appropriate word for this, on what is needed? Because as managers, you're going to have a lot of people coming to you with all sorts of information, right? You don't act on everything. You can't. You take inventory. What is the most critical? But it is that skill that during that cultural shift and understanding the organization, I think is pretty critical in the management interview process. Did I answer your question, James? That was good. Oh, so managers often say our focus on relationship and all human interaction is at heart of what we do. Is there an opportunity to ask deeper questions of their professional references? Let's see.
It sounds like James is asking if you are calling for references for a potential hire that you're going to make, if there are questions you can ask in that process, I believe is what he's saying.
Situational references. So, situational questions to the reference. I think creating a scenario type question with the applicant being in the specific situation under these conditions, let's say pressure, resistance of the employees to change. How did this individual handle the situation under these circumstances, right? And James, you could work out, what do you see to be the more success route? Did they handle it like this way, A, or did they go the B route and maybe, I don't know, procrastinate, run and hide and not handle it very well? But you could work that out as a situational. Okay, I think I got that one.
And I see Carol has made a comment as well. She says, you would probably get a sense during the interview process and asking some questions on how they would respond to various scenarios.
Yes, there you go, Carol. Very good. Thank you.
And she went on to say, or explain you have shifted from maybe an authoritative management style to a collaborative or transformational style.
Yes. Yeah. That sounds like one of my classes, actually, or something that I've seen in one of my classes. Very good. Thank you. So when managers say that the relationship is all human interaction, is the heart of what we do, right? As organizations, your first thought is yes. But whenever you get a little bit, you come down a few floors and you start to look at the people, the humans that do the work to make the money. These people have to interact with other people, and also they're interrelated, right? So there's all these relationships going on. And then there's the consumer. In a lot of organizations, that coming down a few floors to come in and interact with those people, sometimes leaders never get there. They're more focused on the external customer, right? It's that customer that usually pays the bills, brings in more product designs and ideas. But without what's a few floors down, we could never build what they want. So having that focus on those internal relationships of humans within the organization is quite critical for the organization as a whole. So looking at the human connection within the organization requires a strong network of relationships. These enhance the organization's success internally and externally. If your organization internally still has or continues to have conflict, disruption, internal resistance based on what the internal conversation is, because leadership is not communicating with what's going on internally. Everyone's assuming and using their own perceptions and ideas to make these assumptions. Therefore, it's very hard to shift or increase the social intelligence without that leadership engagement a few floors down. Okay. And sometimes the power of social intelligence in management is never fully understood because their human connection piece is missing. Therefore, empathy, although it is the cornerstone of social intelligence, it's never utilized in the manner that it probably should have been because of the lack of human connection. So this study done in 2020 as well determined that 30% of individuals with higher social intelligence, the 30% of, not individuals, organizations had increased or outperformed other similar organizations. They had a 12% increase in productivity, and 17% had an increase of team engagement. The teams had a 17%. I should have wrote these backwards. I'm sorry. But I mean, as you can see, there's an increase in team engagement, productivity, and also revenue, right? What more could an organization ask for whenever it comes to increasing your revenue? I'm not saying that the external concept is bad, but we tend to focus on that as organizations probably 200% of the time, giving that internal piece 3%. Therefore, turnover is high, very low retention rate. It's hard to make that shift. So how do we do it? How do we make that shift? Because we all want that increase in revenue. We want a productive, successful organization. One of the key elements, the very first key element, is start to communicate, right? Communicate as much and however you can with those throughout the organization to make the shift, because now we're kind of moving into that cultural piece, because the culture of the organization needs to become a little bit more social intelligent. So we have to communicate throughout the organization our values, our goals, our ideas. The why are we doing this? Why do we do anything, right? So if you're starting from ground zero with the organization, you may want to throw out all of your whys, post them on community boards, have them as screensavers on all the office computers. Let it be known what your organization stands for. This will improve all areas because people will then most likely connect their values to the organization. Second is treat people with respect and compassion, both in the workplace and out. Okay, this is being a good human, right? But whenever we look at people in the organization and we think of their skill level, maybe they did something wrong. And overall, as a team, you're not necessarily as compassionate as you probably could have been. Not necessarily as understanding or respectful for that person. So changing that dichotomy, the behavior within the organization, is a key concept, because if the leader does it, it will be mimicked. Okay. If one does it, usually the higher up leaders, if they start this behavior and the communication, other leaders will do it as well. And sometimes there is a dynamic shift within a lot of people because their perception starts to change. Okay. Diversity and inclusion, celebrating and striving for inclusivity in all aspects of businesses. And we'll talk a little bit more about diversity in just a minute. Kelly, can you still hear me?
I lost you for a moment, but now you're back. I think you're ready to go, Sarah.
Okay. Can you still see my screen?
I can see your screen and you're all set.
Okay, good, because everything changed. Sorry.
Oh, yes, you're all set. Everything's working just fine.
Okay, good. So companies, well, remember early on I said this started quite a while back. So now we have a lot of digital tools. They're easy to implement. We get back lots of data. And I say they're now starting to recognize it, but it's been about 10, 12 years. Companies started collecting data on their employees' skills. And the last report that I read on soft skills, specifically emotional intelligence, there's soft competencies as well. But now organizations are starting to measure that emotional intelligence level within their project managers, but also their middle managers at other levels. They expect these individuals to raise these soft skills. Whereas past managers, they would take only the hard skill performance metrics. That was it on their managers. So going back to perception a little bit, the way we perceive things may not be the same as they actually are. And the example I like to give for this is I'm looking across a pond, and what I see on the other side is a beautiful mountain and maybe a little cabin, one of those Bob Ross cabins and the mountains behind it. So that's what I see. And you're standing on the other side and you're looking past my shoulder and you see a landfill and you see smoke and factories on the other side. But I see this beautiful place behind you. So at any one point around that pond, anyone's going to see something different. That's the easiest way for me to provide an explanation on perception and how people view it as their reality. And usually it's a concrete vision and it's hard to change, fill in the gaps or expand it beyond that narrow view of what I see across the pond. So my perception of what I have in my head about what's going on within a particular organization or the one I work for is pretty powerful because my imagination is really good and I can imagine all sorts of things. They're great, they're horrible, they're bad, they're devastating, they're exciting, but that's what my perception does. It's very vivid, bright, and colorful, primarily because I don't watch much TV. I entertain myself. But we expect what to happen can greatly influence how we perceive our reality. So going back to that unknown factor, what does it look like? What are we creating? What did our beliefs and culture tell us that was going to happen if these three things all happened at the same time? Change, new software. They let 4 people go. Now what's next? So it's a fear factor that I'm going to work up all sorts of things that I believe that I've experienced, encountered, and been taught to create this perception of new reality. It's all in my head, but now I'm really frustrated about it. So what do I do as an employee? I'm going to have to go talk to the boss, talk to the leaders. But as leaders, how can you change this perception creation into more of a success factor. Okay. So that takes a huge communication route. In reality, it should have started early on to prevent or be more proactive for employees to create this. So I'm going to start with the power of influence. As leaderships and managers, you have great, powerful influences. In most cases, you're able to shape and change the experiences of people around you. But a lot of them don't necessarily understand what powerful influences they have. So if you're telling somebody the information you think is right, but really it's wrong, you maybe just influence them in a very negative way. Or if there's a rumor mill going, it's very hard to change that. Okay, so you have the powerful capabilities to do that. And then you also have, or you will be most likely, engaging with limitations of perceptions, meaning that it's super, super concrete and it's not able to expand. The perceptions can sometimes limit our understanding of the world around us. So if employees are unable to see the value that you continue to put out, it's difficult to change that because maybe their belief or perception is all change is bad. Maybe their awareness is very limited. So they're very, this is my world and I'm not limited.
There is a question here. Can you please provide a real life example in your experience where applying social intelligence might have altered project outcome or an outcome for an organization or a team?
Sure. So a real life, example would be the organization wanted to implement a new process. Okay. Yes, they went to mid-level management leaders and they got their feedback on it, but they didn't say why this new process is really needed to be implemented, who it was going to impact, how much time it was going to consume. So there was a lot of variables that were left out, even though management communicated with middle management. Okay. The process came through, it was pushed through, and everybody was required to engage and participate. Everyone got so frustrated because it was time consuming. They didn't understand why or what value this brought. It was just a negative hindrance on everyone that it was imposed upon. Therefore, it failed. So if it would have succeeded, the management would have taken more time. They would have prepared better, and they would have educated middle management and also given middle management material to take back to their team so their team would understand what's coming. Because the middleman or project leaders, let's just say that project leaders, when they're going back to their team, they have to face their team members, and the resistance is then put on the project leader, right? So the upper management never sees what the project leader is having to go through and deal with all of these coworkers, colleagues, team players at one time. So that education process of value, the why are we doing this and what exactly are we doing? So in my experience, when you don't provide those things to everyone, to provide that social, intelligent, and inclusivity piece, you will fail. And I've seen it happen. Does that answer your question? It's a very long answer. I'm sorry.
I'm not, they haven't responded on if they answered the question. I often say that perception is 100% of reality for some people. That may have been an earlier comment. And then Carol did mention it's important to remember that perception is everywhere, from policies to laws. Each person sees them in their own way. The idea should be to remain open to the fact that not all people think or perceive everything the same way. So a lot of echoing your comments there. I think everybody feels strong agreement with what you've shared on
Yes.
perception.
And perception of the laws is quite, I think I get a lot of humor out of it, but it's not laws in the United States. They're ones in other countries. So you can't sell bubble gum in Siberia on the street. It's illegal. So, and you can't dance on certain days. Anyway, it is that perception piece, right, on everything.
And you got a lot of thank yous here that you did answer the question. Let me see, I think there might be an additional question. What are the aspects of emotional intelligence? What are the aspects of emotional intelligence should a new manager focus on?
Self-awareness, understanding yourself as far as a new manager, and how you manage yourself is critical to managing others.
And when you, Sarah, just a question on that understanding yourself and self-awareness, do you recommend something, one tool over another? I know Myers-Briggs and DISC, and there are a number of tools that you can kind of assess your, understand yourself better and understand others better. Do you recommend one over another, or do you feel that they all add some value?
Some of those. The Myers-Briggs I would throw out the door for emotional intelligence. That's good after you kind of get where you stand or get an idea of yourself, right? The EQI 2.0 is my go-to assessment. And in most cases, the individuals who administer that assessment can also do what's called a 360. So you pick out certain people and maybe even a family member to answer this assessment. You get back all of their perceptions on you. So you have your individual and then these perception pieces. You combine those and you get a great report on what level you're at, basically. And if you're just starting, I would really suggest taking this at least twice a year. To see where are you, especially as managers, that's a good idea.
It's a great recommendation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just one other question before you move to the next area. In your view, how does the evolving landscape of remote work and digital communications impact the application and importance of social intelligence in organizations?
A lot. It impacts it significantly. So to be honest, I'm not in Harrisburg. I'm in Arkansas. So I am a remote worker. I've been a remote worker for almost 4 years. I love what I do. But being a remote worker, because I was an entrepreneur for 12 years. I worked with people, real people outside of my home. There's a great difference, but the disconnect between remote work, this isn't my situation. I've heard it from many others. Okay. The disconnect between most remote workers and the organization is significant because those two pieces have not come together the way they should, in a way. There's activities at work on site. However, those remote employees are not brought in. However, there is the capability and technology at most of these organizations that have implemented at-home workers. So they should be brought in. But a lot of organizations don't think about connecting these two pieces, and that their remote workers are critical usually to the organization. Otherwise, why are they here? I think I answered that, or maybe I just talked around it.
No, I think that's a great answer, and probably that could be one of our follow-on community forums on engaging remote workers in a better way, or how you can move to the next level with that. the other piece of the question was around digital communications, or is that, you think that's basically the same thing? I know a lot of people are using social media and other things.
Well, with organizations, I don't think their digital communication should be on social media, right? Because not everyone uses social media the way the organization does. The organization has a specific goal in mind. You're promoting the organization and you're trying to get more sales, more customers, whatever. Whereas I'm an employee there. I don't care. I work for you. It's not my job to be your customer, right? So if the organization has a message, and usually they should be passing these things down to the remote workers in a, like if you use MS Teams, pass messages through MS Teams, whether it's through email, SharePoint, or the instant messenger thing. Use the same tool. Don't jump all around. Be consistent with your digital workers so they know what to expect and they know where to find the information they're looking for.
Great point. Yeah, I know we're getting close on time here, that we're approaching 1 o'clock. So thank you for answering that. And certainly if others want to chat questions, we can follow up even after this with answers to the questions.
Yes. Let me go over diversity just a second. So this is the last slide. With diversity, what it brings is a vast amount of knowledge that if the person is different than you, and these are all the differences here. So here are your differences. Not all of them, but there's just a few, like your most common, right? There's a difference in perception in your ethnic groups, your race, and also how you perceive your own values. These diverse outlooks bring value to your team. And having the differences is what allows your team to think creatively and out of the box. I mean, over here, consider if you're using the same thought process to solve the same problem. In most cases, you'll do the same or have the same results. And think about the definition to insanity, right? If you do the same thing over and over and over again, you'll receive the same results. So diversity fixes that very easily. The ethnic backgrounds, they bring so much diversity and differences of opinion, and it's a great value that organizations can promote within their management and also their mid-levels. And gender is another one as well. All right, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time, your attention, your engagement, and it's been a pleasure to speak with you all today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed your lunch, maybe just a little bit more.
Well, you're getting lots of applause, as you can probably see. You've gotten a virtual standing ovation. So thank you all for thanking Dr. Dyson for us. And you will get an email following this. We're asking you to think about our One HR conference coming up, our Project Management Innovation Conference coming up, and would love to see you all at those events. Thank you, Dr. Dyson, so much for your time, and what a great way to spend lunch.
Yes, and have a wonderful holiday this year. Everyone, stay warm.
We'll see you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.